What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Jeff Guy here. Today's video, we're doing our first UFC video on the channel. I've been a UFC and MMA writer for DraftKings for a little bit now, and we're taking this content from DK Nation, which, go check me out over there, to YouTube now. This slate is kind of really tough, both from a matchups perspective and the fact that it's the first slate we have late swap for. So we'll have to break down all of this that's going on for this Fight Night slate. Make sure you follow, subscribe, like, do all those things. Let me know that you're enjoying this content, and let's get into the fights now. We're going to break down this card chronologically, starting with the first fight and ending with the main event, Lewis versus Spivac. There are a ton of things to consider for this slate, most specifically the fact that we have late swap now. So instead of just setting a lineup and watching it throughout the day, you're going to have to monitor how players are doing and how different fights are playing out and change your lineup based on that. And what I anticipate happening for this first game of late swap is all of these main event cards, these top 5 fights are going to have pretty high ownership, which means, yes, they might be good plays, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to get different and win a tournament if you play all the guys and ladies from the top of the card. So it's super important to break down these early fights to know where we can find value. And if we hit, we can either do 2 things with our lineup. One, keep it and hope all of our picks from the beginning hit. Or if someone loses, we pivot to someone who has a little bit more high upside than our later choices to let us catch up to people later on. Starting off the card, we have Natalia Silva versus Teresa Bleda. Silva, 13-5-1 record, while Bleda is 6-0 and 1-0 in UFC. Of course, that one win was on the Dana White Contender Series, where she had a really dominant ground control win against her opponent. She's taller. I know UFC doesn't have her listed right now. She's 5'9" against Silva at 5'4", and I believe has reach and leg reach advantages. However, I don't think I'm going to be picking Bleda in this fight because of who Silva has become as a fighter. She has not been the strongest striker. She has not been the most aggressive throughout her career, and last fight, she kind of proved it. If we go over to this matchup and look at her profile card here, Jasmine Jasduvakius, I believe is her name, that's Lithuanian, was kind of owned by Silva in this fight. It was a unanimous decision that she owned. She did a great job with and proved that she's a big striker now. I don't think Bleda is going to be able to hang on the feet with Silva, and despite the reach and height advantages that she's giving up, I'm going to take Silva by decision in this one. Does that mean she's a good DFS play at 8,900? Not really. She did score 85 points in that kind of dominant win back in June. June is the 6th month. Earning 120 strikes, 2 takedowns, control time. I just view this as a decision win fight, and I'm kind of going to fade both sides of this, which is kind of counterintuitive based on how we want to attack early slates, but we're really going to heavy up on this next one. The next matchup on the card is Brady Hiestand versus Fernie Garcia. The biggest differential I'm seeing in this matchup is strikes landed. Fernie Garcia has kind of looked timid and struggled in his UFC fights, only hitting 2.85 strikes per minute, compared to Brady Hiestand's pretty typical for bantamweight, 4.4. And then we take a look at the grappling. Brady Hiestand's averaging 6 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is a great mark there. At 8,500, he's kind of a steal. Assuming he wins this one and assuming he wins early, he scored 78 points in a loss, hitting those 6 takedowns in a loss against Tercios, who we'll talk about in a minute. I love Brady. I think he wins this fight. I think he wins it by either a knockout or submission. And that's really all we have to say here. Next fight on the card is Vanessa Demopoulos versus Maria Oliveira. Vanessa Demopoulos is kind of older. She is 34 at this point and only 8-4 professionally, giving up a lot of height to Maria Oliveira and reach advantages and leg reach advantages. This fight's basically a pick'em, which I don't really understand. Specifically on strikes landed per minute. Strikes absorbed kind of goes towards Demopoulos. You want to be lower, and obviously in strikes absorbed. And then in terms of takedown accuracy, takedown defense, I'm going to give the edge to Oliveira. She has just come out and proven that she is a high volume, fast, creative striker. And I think Vanessa really struggles on the feet. She was knocked down in her last fight by, I wrote this one up. I just want to make sure I'm getting the name right, by Silvana Gomez Juarez, who was on the UFC 281 card last weekend and is now no longer in UFC. So my pick here is Maria Oliveira by KO. I don't know if it's going to come early, but if it does, I think she's a great DFS play and a sharp bet as well, given that this is a pick'em, and I really don't see this one as an even matchup at all. Next up is Ricky Turcios versus Kevin Natividad. Another matchup that I'm not a huge fan of from a DFS perspective. Both of these guys have KO upside, and if I was going to pick someone to win by knockout, I would probably take the underdog in Kevin Natividad. However, I don't think he has doesn't really have any advantages in striking and in grappling as well. I don't see either guy really taking this fight to the ground. So I am backing Ricky Turcios from a betting perspective, but I really just don't see him winning by stoppage. So I'll take him, and I'm not going to play him in DFS. Miles Johns versus Vince Morales is an interesting fight, but it's another one that I'm just not going to really target in DFS. Miles Johns is a late replacement in this fight, and he enters as a -170 betting favorite. He's fine. I think he's a better fighter than Vince Morales, and he'll grind out a decision win here. I don't see a lot to like in this last bantamweight fight on the card. Maybe he gets a couple takedowns, but he is, what's his price? Like 8,400? Somewhere in here. Where are we looking? Yeah, he's 8,400. Like, for him to pay off that salary, he needs to go well above 100 points. And I've never seen him do that once as a part of DFS. He did fight Kevin Natividad on this card, winning by KO, and only earned 81 points there. So realistically, I just see him as a low upside option. Potentially a winner if you want to play him in cash, but tournaments, probably not. This next fight in the women's flyweight division is probably going the distance, and another one that I'm going to look to fade in DFS. Jennifer Maia is a very established veteran at this point, is a +160 underdog. I don't think she has enough left in the tank to get a win against the younger Marina Moroz. Decent takedown defense, fine takedown accuracy. Maybe there's a couple that happen in this fight, but I'm really struggling to, one, pick a solid winner, even though I'm leaning towards the favorite in Marina Moroz. But at the same time, this one's going to a decision. I really don't see it being a finish, and that makes it a really tough play for DFS, especially if you want to play Moroz. You have to pay $9K for her, and at this price, no. As we enter the last fight of the prelims, we really only have one guy we want to play in DFS. So as we're talking about late swaps, we want to make sure that we're picking people that we're confident in and pivoting to high upside people further down the slate. So with Brady being our one lock right now, we can start to take a look at roster construction that includes Maria Oliveira, that includes a Miles Johns, maybe Marina Moroz if you want. And then as the slate develops and you see if people actually win by KO or finish, or everyone just simply goes to a decision on this card, you can go up to some of these fights, which I'm expecting to actually not go the distance. So there'll be higher ownership, but a lot higher upside on these next 6 fights. I believe Jack Della Maddalena opened as a 350 betting favorite and has now swelled to -580. Nobody is giving Danny Roberts a chance, and for good reason. He is weak-chinned as they come, and despite being a really established UFC veteran that's given us a lot of great fights, I think back to his war where he got knocked out against Mike Perry back in it was a couple years ago at this point. He is a solid fighter, and I don't think he's +440 against anyone, but Jack Della Maddalena has just rolled through everyone in the division and just wins by first round knockout every single time he enters the octagon. So he is the most expensive fighter on the slate, right in at 9,600, and I think he's a lock for cash games and probably for tournaments as well. Given the number of fights that are probably going to decision here, you're gonna take a shot at Della Maddalena here, even though he's the most expensive player. The upside's just too much to fade. In the second pick'em fight on the card, we have Andre Fiallo taking on Muslim Salikov. This is a fight that's probably not going the distance either, which makes it very exciting for DFS. It's a tough one to pick, though. Both of these guys are able to win by knockout. I think Salikov has more of a chance to win by sub, given some of these grappling numbers, averages a takedown per fight, and has pretty good takedown defense. Same does Fialho. I just struggle to believe that Fialho's advantages in striking are going to allow Muslim to actually win. If he can land some strikes against Fialho, which, everyone does, he averages 6.65 strikes absorbed per minute. Muslim Salikov could definitely pull out the win here. I'm taking the slight underdog in Andre Fialho, hoping for an upside knockout here and creating some salary relief as well. As you look, Salikov 8,300, Fialho 7,900 allows you to plug him in and save some money while you do it. This is my biggest stance I'm taking on this card, and I'm taking the plus 185 underdog Chase Sherman against the undefeated Salsa Boy Waldo Cortez Acosta. I really like Cortez Acosta as a prospect and as a fighter. He's so fun to watch, gets after it when he's in the octagon, but he just fought Jared Vanderaa, who I'm pretty negative on as a UFC fighter, and went to decision, and Jared Vanderaa kind of gave us the blueprint on how to beat Waldo, even though he didn't, which was strong leg kicks, force him to bring the fight to you, and rob him of his finishing ability by, not letting him use his strong legs to power his mean right hook. I think Chase Sherman saw that fight, and he also knocked out Jared Vanderaa when they fought, and as the more elusive, smart fighter in this matchup, and another fight that I don't expect to go the distance, I think Chase Sherman's a real value in DFS and on the sportsbook. I don't think that, or I think he's just, people are seeing the 8-0 of Cortez Acosta and kind of just writing off Sherman here. At 7,100, I'm willing to take the risk that he, wins, or he potentially loses by KO, but also can win by KO in a fight where he's only 7,100. So if he gets to 80, 90 points, which is very in range, I'm all about playing him in DFS. I really feel bad for Ian Cutelaba. He has kind of been thrown to the wolves in his last 5 fights. Taking a look at his fight history, he's got 2 losses to Magomed Ankalaev, a draw against Dustin Jacoby, which is a fight you should probably win, even though I do like him. Beat Devin Clark, which is fine, and then 2 straight losses to Ryan Spann, who just won at UFC 281, and Johnny Walker, who's kind of undergoing a career resurgence after beating Ian Cutelaba. I can't even talk today. Kennedy Njoku, I'm not even going to try. I've watched this guy fight. He is an absolute dog. He is 4 inches taller at 6'5", has an 8-inch reach advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage in in legs. And the biggest advantage for Cutelaba is the fact that he is a takedown artist and he is a wrestler against Njoku, who does not wrestle as much. However, he's proven that he absolutely can and has earned submission wins from the back of his opponents. I just struggle to believe that this fight goes to the ground, given Kennedy's advantages in striking and just how strong he is. And if it does go to the ground, he has proven that he can get on people's backs and submit them. So I'm going to take Kennedy here as the relatively heavy favorite. I also like him in DFS, given that he's going to be a little bit chalkier, but a very high upside option, given that, yes, he can finish his fight. And we are on to the main event of the evening. Number 7, Derek Lewis taking on number 12, Sergey Spivac. I feel bad picking against the Black Beast, but Spivac is kind of another guy entering his renaissance as a fighter and his prime, while Derek Lewis is very much on his way out. This is a bad stylistic matchup for Lewis, even though he has the upside to knock anyone out at any time. Spivac is probably just going to take him to the ground and either submit or control him the entire time. If this fight goes the distance, it's absolutely going to Spivac, and if it ends early, I'm going to take Spivac by sub or by TKO versus a Derek Lewis KO. You have to call out that Derek Lewis is 7K, so if he gets one of his trademark KOs in the first round, like he last did against Chris Daukaus in 2021, 106 points, absolutely on the table for the guy who's never lost twice in a row. So if he does take his 3rd loss, he might be on the way out of the UFC. But we're taking Spivac here, and we're just going to plan on him finishing the older and less athletic Derek Lewis. You probably can't get all 5 of these guys in your lineup while feeling good about what you're playing. So I'd probably take someone out and put in Maria Oliveira or a Miles Johns or Brady Heisen, who's our favorite guy, and then find some way to get different and find some salary relief elsewhere. That's going to do it for our DFS and kind of sports betting breakdown of this slate. Let me know if you disagree with some of my picks. Let me know if you agree, and let me know how you're watching the fights. Comment down below, subscribe, do all those things, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.